Welcome back to another episode of Lost Codex Legends. My name is Jesse, and today we're talking about one particular character who has crept around in the shadows for many years. One who's been part of the story, but not necessarily up front until recently. I'm of course talking about Matthias Shaw. Now today we're going to cover Shaw's story from the very earliest, potentially non-canon bits in the RPG, all the way up until his most recent heroic actions in Battle for Azeroth. He has been one of those characters who kind of went from a background named NPC to actually someone quite prominent in the storyline if you play Alliance. So we're gonna get all that information. We're gonna dive right into it right away. And we're not gonna delay. There's no cheesy intro. There's no rambles at the beginning. This is the ramble. Stop. Here we go. All right. Who is Matthias Shaw? Let's go. Little is known about Matthias Shaw's younger days, but according to the Warcraft RPG, which is only canon when Blizzard really wants it to be, Matthias was raised by his grandmother, Pathonia Shaw. The reason for this is his mother, who apparently was an assassin, was killed on a mission, and thus his grandmother raised him. But his grandmother is a complete badass in her own story, as according to the Warcraft RPG, she's the one who formed the Stormwind's Assassins Guild. She's the one who taught presumably her daughter, but also taught Matthias how to be a rogue, how to be an assassin. And although there's some discrepancy of the difference between the SI7 and the Stormwind's Assassins Guild, early lore suggests it's used interchangeably. Sean Copeland did say on Twitter, lead historian Sean Copeland said that they are unofficially separate organizations. So if we do take the Warcraft RPG as canon, Shaw's Nana totally is the founder of that, and that's amazing for a backstory. Nothing we know officially, since the whole point of that would be to keep that secret, but still, that's amazing. What we do know about Shaw's early childhood is that he was best friends with a certain young lad named Edwin Vancleef. Him and Edwin, they'd go fishing down by the pond and throw rocks at cats, I guess. I don't know what kids in Stormwinds do. But eventually, as they got older, Shaw would train Edwin Vancleef in the ways of the shadow and the ways of the rogue, and hope that one day he would fight alongside him. Spoiler, he doesn't. When we do meet Matthias Shaw in World of Warcraft, he is seen in the barracks as the leader of the SI7, the intelligence agency of Stormwind, and for most of the Alliance. And here he is wearing this amazing cloth set. Just good old Shaw, and his gear was hard to come by back in World of Warcraft, as we all know with Classic. His work is diverse as he coordinates reconnaissance with efforts regarding enemies such as the Horde, the Defias, the Scourge, everything like that. Shaw and his agents keep a keen eye on the Defias activity, mainly, presumably because Shaw knows Edwin Vancleef, and he knows how dangerous he is. There's a letter that you bring written from Shaw, and it talks about Shaw growing up with Edwin, and says, if Vancleef is leading the Defias Brotherhood, then this is far more dangerous than we realize. So Shaw knows Edwin personally, which would kind of make him maybe an uncle to Vanessa, especially if Shaw and Edwin saw each other as like best friends, brothers kind of. That's cool. We're not going to talk about that, but that's a cool thought. I never thought of that until now. Cool. As I mentioned, he operates from the Old Town Barracks, but as a side operation, he actually heads the Stormwind's Assassins Guild, which, again, it's not canon, but it's not canon. Like, they're two separate organizations. It's not really mentioned. It's one of those vanilla things that is really mentioned several times, but then it's brought up never again. And so a lot of people are attached to vanilla lore, but it begs the question of how canon is it? Is it just a branch of the SI7? What is it? Either way, he's now the leader, as Nana has retired, but he's also head of the SI7, so take that as you will. Matthias has friends and acquaintances far and wide. He owes Barras Alexton, one of the architects in Stormwind, a favor, though we never learn why. And he knows most of the rogues in the Alliance and sends them to spy and assassinate and steal. If you're a rogue on the Alliance side, Matthias Shaw knows it, and chances are you work for him. Now, things are very quiet for Shaw for most of Vanilla, aside from him sending some agents to Westfall to keep an eye on the Defias, and his storyline in Stormwind. Burning Crusade and Wrath of Lich King, we hear nothing from him, which means he's doing an amazing job as a rogue. Good job, Shaw. But then things start to act up when Deathwing arrives. In the Shattering novel, Shaw is the one to appoint Owen Graddock, who is a dwarf rogue who accompanies Varian and other SI7 agents to storm Ironforge and assassinate Moira Bronzebeard when she's being a total asshat, and which obviously doesn't happen. When Varian doesn't show up for his Remembrance Day speech in one of the short stories, Shaw is amongst the people, alongside Jaina and Marcus Jonathan, to go searching for him as head of the SI7 when the king goes missing and doesn't show up for a speech. It's kind of his job to know about it, or he should have known it ahead of time. And so he goes looking for Varian during this time. During the Cataclysm, we obviously know that Shaw has been keeping an eye on Westfall, as he has sent Amber Kiernan again to watch that tower down in the south of Westfall, southeast of Westfall, I believe. And in Vanilla, it was filled with Defias, and in Cataclysm, it's filled with a bunch of ogres and that goblin who becomes a boss in the Dead Mines. Amber is there watching the trees with her sniper. And of course, she's sent by Matthias Shaw. He also has sent some agents and scouts to Stone Talon Mountains as well. Shaw's Cataclysm spotlight doesn't really turn on until the Twilight's Hammer starts to show up and, ruin everyone's day. Shaw helps Anduin root the Twilight cultists out of Stormwind, and when the time comes to go to the Twilight Highlands, Shaw is there. Shaw joins you, the player, in the attack on Twilight Highlands. In the Twilight Highlands, Shaw is overseeing everything. And this is important because this is the first time we've seen Shaw sort of step from behind the counter. Shaw, up until this point, has been the guy. He's been playing an RTS. He's been sending the troops everywhere. But now he's on the front lines. Now he's going to see, all right, even though he's a rogue, even though he's the head of the SI7, he's now taking things into his own hands. Shaw joins the adventurer as we disturb some Twilight activity, but things don't go according to plan all the time. At the Twilight Citadel, the player is alone with Shaw. For Horde, it's Garona, and all of our reinforcements are dead, so it's just us, and this is where we see his fighting prowess. We start fighting Twilight assassins and cultists, and we stop several Ascension rituals, we free some Red Dragons, and we help the Red Dragon flight, and we stop the Twilight Dragon flight. Shaw really steps up. He's not just the quest giver who stands back. He fights in these quests, and it's a long way since his original Cataclysm storyline of, him as a rogue trainer and wearing his cloth armor. By the way, he's upgraded his armor at this point to some fancy Trial of the Crusader, Trial of the Colosseum, whatever you want to call it, from Wrath of the Lich King. And fun note that I didn't even clue in, the name of this set is named after Vancleef. So either Shaw has no chill, or he's wearing it as a token to his childhood friend who turned out to be a dick. Either way, Shaw is wearing some leather armor and kicking ass in Twilight Highlands. He's also the one to organize a strike on Cho'Gall, the Altar of Twilight, and is present to lead the assault, even though this turns out to be a trap. You tried, Shaw. You tried. Now, after the Cataclysm, we don't really hear from Shaw in Mists or Warlords. There is that whole new cast of rogues and SI7 agents who show up in Mists for the Jade Forest questline, and presumably he's the one who sent them, so he's probably back at the command table for both storylines. So he's just doing a really good job as a rogue by staying in the background. In the Legion expansion, Matthias Shaw becomes a very prominent character for the rogue player and their rogue questline. We learn that Matthias Shaw and the SI7 learned of the Burning Legion's trap on the Broken Shore, but that news never reached the Alliance and Horde. Why? Well, the reason the Horde and Alliance never learn of this trap is that Deathrok the Dreadlord ambushes the SI7 and captures Shaw. Amber Kiernan was a witness to this attack, and because of this, Deathrok had her killed. Rogue players find her body before she could warn the uncrowned organization. Now, with the Alliance and Horde decimated at the Broken Shore, the SI7 ambushed, and Shaw in his control, Deathrok can truly do some damage within Stormwind. As his first act, he manipulated Stormwind forces to exclude the uncrowned from the city, focusing his attention on the uncrowned Shadow, the player, and Garona, though Garona has her own reasons for not being welcome in the city. He does all of this when the Night Watch from Darkshire is revealed to be working for the Legion under the organization of the Veiled Hand, and are in the middle of attacking Stormwind. Naturally, Garona and the player infiltrate the city and kill the Nightwatch leader Althea Ebonlock. We learn that she was merely a subject, and the true conductor of this entire plot was the captain of the guard, Malrys Malagan. We rush off to the keep to deal with this, just as Anduin is attacked, which Shaw Deathrock plays off as the only reason he's letting us leave, even though Anduin wasn't in any real danger. He has to play up the part, he has to play up the role of Shaw, and this was not the time to reveal his full hand. Naturally, the Uncrowned starts to get suspicious of the SI7's erratic and illogical activities, and they open an investigation when Amber Kiernan's body is found in the sewers. Turns out Shaw was the one who ordered Red Blade pirates to have her killed, and so the Uncrowned want to figure out why. At this point, Valera Sanguinar deciphers a letter that Amber was holding, and we learn that Matthias Shaw is not who he says he is. He is an imposter. Tao Shi, who you may remember from the Shadow Pen in Pandaria, decides that she's not only going to find and save Shaw, but we're going to expose Deathrock. Tao Shi and a fellow Shadow of the Uncrowned infiltrate Felsoul Hold, where they find Shaw and return him to the Hall of Shadows. After being saved, Shaw reveals to the Uncrowned that Deathrock had told lies to Anduin Wrynn about the Horde, and had manipulated the new king into preparing Stormwind's armies to attack the Horde, thus beginning another conflict. Now, with all the high tension going on in Legion, at this point the Alliance still thinks the Horde abandoned them outright on the Broken Shore. The Horde is now dealing with the attack in Stormheim, with Greymane lashing out at Sylvanas when she brings boatloads of plague to new lands, because that's definitely not suspicious at all. Tensions are high, and Deathrock is going to take full advantage of this and whisper in the ear of Anduin to stir the pot, to provoke things a little further. To cover his tracks, Deathrock has put up wanted posters of members of the Uncrowned all over Stormwind, claiming that they had conspired with the Burning Legion, and thus turned Stormwind citizens and guard against them. So he knows now, or is paranoid that they're on the way, and so he just decides to turn the entire city against the Uncrowned. Rather than him face accusations that he's the one working with the Legion, because he is an entire city. He is the voice of a very powerful character in Stormwind, and with the snap of a finger, he can turn the entire city against the Uncrowned, against the player. No matter if you're Alliance or Horde, suddenly you have become the enemy. Under the cover of night, and with the help of Fleet Admiral Tethys, Shaw, the player, and Tao Shi sneak into Stormwind, make their way to SI7 headquarters, expose Deathrock, and defeat him. In the aftermath of all of this, Shaw declines an invite to join the Uncrowned, as he says, I'm a leader of the Alliance, I'm the leader of the SI7, and this is definitely a conflict of interest. But he does offer himself as an ally, he does offer himself to help them in any way possible, should they need it in the future. So he keeps his options open. He is the master of this massive spy network, and he's like, you know what? Alright, I can't join you, but like low-key, I kinda can. Many months later, Sargeras is defeated, but unfortunately not after he stabs his massive sword into the planet, thus stirring up Azeroth. King Anduin Wrynn asks Shaw and his agents to go to Silithus to observe what's going on and to bring news back. When the new king is giving his speech at Lion's Rest, celebrating the Legion's defeat, Shaw hurries to meet with him and King Greymane with worrying news. Many goblins have started to arrive around the site of the sword, and they're mining up this unknown substance, and he passes the substance to Anduin, as we see in the cinematic. By the way, this is the first time we've seen Shaw in beautiful cinematic form. Look at that mustache. Look at that mustache. And Shaw then sends Alliance adventurers to meet the SI7 in Silithus. He later appears on the Skyguard above the Seething Shore battleground, where he oversees the Alliance operations against the Horde. Battle for Azeroth comes around, and Shaw continues his important role. Not only is he still gathering information about Azeroth and ordering his SI7 agents everywhere, as tensions between the Horde and Alliance begin to rise, Shaw organizes a spy operation within Orgrimmar. His SI7 agents are scattered and placed all over on Orgrimmar to keep an eye on Sylvanas. Now, although this is largely a "we're watching you" Sylvanas signal, they're obvious that they're present, but they're not obvious enough to get captured. This backfires as the SI7 is fed false information. The SI7 hears that the Horde is mobilizing and marching on Silithus, and of course, that news gets back to Shaw, that news gets back to the Alliance leaders. This makes the Alliance think that the Horde has managed to secure a way to weaponize Azerite or to use it in a harmful way, and that the Horde wants to secure a monopoly of the mineral on Kalimdor, and thus provokes the Alliance to retaliate with their own plan. Tyrande Whisperwind decides to gather a Night Elf army and awaits in Faralas, where she's planning to intercept the Horde, but they later learn that this is a complete ruse, as the SI7 has been fed false information, allowing the Horde to march into Ashenvale, and thus begins the War of Thorns. Mathias Shaw is the one who sends Alliance players to Ashenvale to help the Night Elf forces there, while waiting for the bulk of the Alliance reinforcements to arrive via ships and other methods. Once the battle for Azeroth has truly kicked off and the war has moved to Kul Tiras, Shaw can be found there on board the Wind's Redemption. Here he is charged with forming an elite task force to assist Halford Wormbane and the 7th Legion from the shadows as the war on Zandalari and Kul Tiras begins to pick up. Shaw gets a more prominent role in the storyline when you, him, and Flynn Fairwin break into the Zandalari treasury to steal back the Tidesage relic called the Abyssal Scepter. This Indiana Jones-themed adventure is fun and lighthearted, but also quite dangerous, as we see there's traps and giant treasure golems. We really see the sort of dynamic of two different types of rogues here, the stealthy assassin stoic leader and the fun swashbuckling kind of rogue, and then there's you, the player, who just stands there in silence. Mathias Shaw was part of the Nazmir feint attack to draw out and distract Zandalari forces. Towards the end of this setup and everything going on in the swamps, he presumably leaves with Jaina, as he can later be seen on board the ship that's approaching the Zandalari harbor with Gelbin Mekatork and Jaina's brother. It's important to note that in the background of this cinematic on board the ship, Shaw doesn't really have an active role in terms of any voiced lines or anything, but he is seen helping characters in the background. Shaw, he's helping the soldier up the stairs as shrapnel and explosions. Literally, the Zandalari fleet is just raining destruction down, and Shaw is not diving for cover. Shaw is trying to rescue anyone he can, anyone he can save in this moment. And I'll bring that up in a moment. We're going to come back to that once I get to the end of Shaw's storyline here. After Varrock Sarfang escapes from Stormwind Stockade, Shaw travels to the Three Corners in Redridge Mountains and told the guards there to take the night off and provided them plenty of alcohol to drink. Of course, once they're drunk, they totally miss Sarfang passing by. So, the only reason Sarfang got as far as he did without Stormwind forces finding him was because of Mathias Shaw himself. Mathias Shaw didn't send any agents to do this. This was Mathias Shaw himself. Leader of the SI7 went to Redridge and organized this very casual distraction to allow Sarfang to properly escape into the swamps and out of Alliance territory. Shaw is also present on the ship alongside Jaina Proudmoore when Bane Bloodhoof returns Derek Proudmoore to her. Again, really shows how important Mathias Shaw is. He's not just a background character. He's not just a random rogue. He is leader of the SI7 of Stormwind. He knows most things. The only one who possibly has any more influence than him as a rogue would probably be Valera Sanguinar as Anduin's personal rogue. Otherwise, the dude is top tier as his own Alliance leader when it comes to intelligence and everything he's doing for the Alliance. And lastly, we see Mathias Shaw in the Saving Bane scenario, and more importantly, the cinematic that happens after Jaina teleports everyone out. Again, he's got a very minor role here. He's literally in the background. We see him helping Bane to his feet, and realistically, how much good is he doing? How much is he actually helping Bane? He's a human, and Bane's a big lad. Bane's a big boy. He'd have to overexert himself to help him. The point is, he's helping. He's doing some good. And this is the end of Mathias' storyline for Battle for Azeroth. I do think we're going to see him in more cinematics as the expansion goes on. I do think we're going to see him play a more active, prominent role as a secondary character for the Alliance. But the reason why I focused on Mathias Shaw helping that soldier in the Dazara lore cinematic with him helping Bane, is it really shows so much by showing so little. Matthias Shaw is an alliance leader. He is leader of the SI7. He is as important as the Council of Three Hammers, as Tyrande Whisperwind, as Velen. He is his own faction within the Alliance. He runs this massive spy network. And as leader of that, his dedication and devotion to the Alliance is unquestionable. In Before the Storm, he is present at Anduin's private gathering when they talk about the gathering proposal between the Forsaken and the Alliance. And although he remains neutral, his presence alongside Turalyon and Velen and Gen Greymane, it's obvious how important he is to the Alliance. And I really want to focus on his good intentions here, because some people still think that Matthias Shaw is malicious, whether he's a Dreadlord still or he's doing some bad things. Now, this could be Blizzard's way of distracting, but if he truly was Deathrock or a Dreadlord on board that ship when the Zandalari shrapnel was flying everywhere, he would have dove off. He would have dove into the water. He literally would have been anywhere else. He wouldn't have cared for Joe the Guard, unless Joe the Guard is a Dreadlord as well. He wouldn't care about helping Bane in such a way, and I really think this is by giving Matthias Shaw so much background presence, being present there with Jaina when Derek has returned, being there for Bane's rescue. It really shows how important and how dedicated Matthias Shaw is to the Alliance agenda, to the Alliance as a faction. He is very proud. He is very stoic in his dedication towards the Alliance, and I just don't think Matthias Shaw is a bad dude. I could totally see him using his network to maybe manipulate the Alliance going forward in a way. Let's say peace is decided, and Matthias Shaw is among those who thinks that this is maybe the wrong direction. I can see Matthias Shaw and his SI7 coming into play with that. I can see Matthias Shaw being a sort of optional character, like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, where Horde can tell Nathanos instead of siding with Bane. Maybe you can tell Shaw instead of siding with Anduin. But I don't see Matthias Shaw instigating any outright ambushes against the Horde, or any outright attacks against the Horde, or instigating any sort of fight against the Horde. Again, everything he's done has been to keep the Alliance as the top faction, as the ones winning this war, and he's not a conniving, malicious character, as we've seen. We obviously saw that in Battle for Azeroth and Legion, but again, that wasn't Matthias Shaw. So, I don't know, what do you guys think? He's been in 3 separate, trailers, or 3 separate cinematics, and he's been a commanding, stoic, silent, helpful, compassionate presence every single time. Is that, would Blizzard really go out of their way to distract in such a way, to deflect so heavily with such a minor character? I mean, it's not like it's a massive conspiracy amongst the community that he's definitely a Dreadlord, so I don't know. I definitely see Matthias's involvement in these cinematics as proof that he's just a proud Alliance member. He is just proud to serve his faction and his king, and he's an absolute bro with a kick-ass grandma and had a kick-ass mom before she died. But that's all we got. That's all we got to talk about today about Matthias Shaw. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. What do you guys think about someone a little bit... Matthias Shaw isn't a lesser character, but would you prefer me to focus on more mainstream characters, more obvious, spotlight characters? Or do you guys enjoy seeing some of the smaller, lesser-known characters to really dive into the who is part? Because a lot of people... Who is Dalen Proudmoore? Well, a lot of us know who Dalen Proudmoore is, but who is Matthias Shaw? Unless you're an Alliance player, you probably don't know who Matthias Shaw is. So, what do you guys think? Is this a good format? Do you guys want to see some lesser-known characters, or a mixture of main and lesser? Let me know in the description below. Let me know. We can do a mix. We can do a mixture of both. I don't know. You guys let me know. As always, a huge special thank you to Laytis and Shandryn for their help in writing and organizing these notes. You guys are awesome. A major shout out to our patrons over at patreon.com/thelostcodex. Without them, these videos would not be possible. If you want to support us in any way and help get this channel more active and more off the ground, head over to patreon.com/thelostcodex and take a look at some of our rewards there. If you want to join the Lost Codex Discord community, description is in the description. What? The link is in the description. God, words are hard right now. I don't know what I'm saying. But if you want to join the awesome Lost Codex Discord community, and it's the best community out there. It's not an opinion. That's just a fact. Join the Discord below. Join. Everyone's super friendly there, no matter your faction, and come hang out. We're awesome. They're awesome. They're awesome. And that's all I got. We'll see you guys later this week for the next episode of Lost Codex Legends. I'm not going to spoil who it is, but we'll find out soon. Okay, bye.